Hello, guys. So, the next exercise, exercise 3, which is called icon symbol. All right, for this one, what I want you to do is I want you to choose 1 to 2 words from the list below and develop 4 to 5 concepts for each. All right, icon symbols to define the word without any fonts or words at all. So, no fonts, no words, nothing. That's going to be of an English language. All right, this is an exercise to make you think beyond just using words to define an idea. So, um, because a lot of times what you have to do is I've had to do this at least 4 times in my career where I've had to define some kind of like logo identity that is going to be represented well in other countries. All right, so you have to be able to define what it is, thinking that your audience is not going to be able to read it. All right, so you have to figure out icons. Plus, the fact that icons can be very, very, very small, sometimes the size of the side of a pencil. So you have to understand that logos have to be very, very simple. All right. So with these icons should not be the typical icon to define them. I should not look at them and say I've seen these icons before. Think outside the box. Think differently with these icons. But for this exercise also, no just the lines, okay? No actually creating having strokes on anything, no lines whatsoever. So don't use the stroke attribute. These shapes must be solely from the shapes that you create. You can use the pen tool. You can use the shape tools in the Pathfinder palette, which I showed you on the second video. Think critically about how you can build one shape out of a combination of other shapes. If you absolutely need to use a line for something, use a minimum of 5-point strokes. When finished, save as and send me a PDF of it. All right. So some of the words you can use is like clock, dog, cat, bus, document, dinner service, business, graphic design, web design, medicine, playset, mobile device, video games, new truck, kitchen, new house, light, and idea. All right, so think in terms of how could you actually define some of these without using any kind of line. All right, so what I can do is if you guys understand, if some of you understand what to do with this project, then you can stop the video here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what to do. Now I will be marking down points for any kind of like icon or symbol that uses line solely. All right, so I'm going to define something that doesn't use line. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this and go to my Illustrator. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to define it as, well, let's say light, for instance. What's the one thing that actually comes out of it called light? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a symbol of that. So here, what I want to do is I'm going to actually create a light bulb. All right, typical light bulb. All right. So if I go ahead and I define like an ellipse here, just like so. All right, and I'm going to create another ellipse right here. All right, so basically I have these two shapes, and you see that purple line there kind of like lines them all up, and that's what I want. Now I'm going to go to my pen tool. I'm going to come up here, and I like how sometimes these smart paths can do really well. But I'm going to come down this way, and I'm going to come to this line here, and I'm just going to go ahead and curve this in a little bit. And I want to go over here, but you see if I go over here, it's going to create that little dip in the line. So I'm going to click on that to just allow it to go straight across. And then I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to see until it meets that other, and that purple line that just showed up. And I'm going to click hold drag to kind of like mimic the curve on the other side as well. And I'm going to click this and make it shoot over here. Alright, so I've got that portion down. Alright, so when I talked about the Pathfinder palette, I went to Window and Pathfinder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of these and I'm going to hit the Combine option. So I've got this as far as a light bulb. It's kind of like you got that shape going on it. Now, this would be right. This is where you would actually define as far as right goes. Because if you did this, that's wrong. Where you got basically just a line kind of defining it. If you absolutely have to have some kind of like stroke or something like that, you have to make it really, 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 really thick. So like right here, that would be okay if it was really, really thick. Right? It's not defined as just a line. Now, when it gets to be thicker, it defines more of a what could be a shape for it. All right. But since I'm doing this, I'm just gonna basically make this a fill for it. All right. So I've got that. Now, what are some of the other things I could actually do to represent as far as a light goes? Obviously, you got the threads here, which can be defined like this. So, like, if I go to my pen tool, and basically what I can do is, you've seen this maybe before, if I have this, and I make that a stroke, now I'm kind of going against what I said as far as a stroke goes. I'm going to actually define the stroke much, much thicker. Alright, but I'm also going to go to the stroke option. And if you remember cap from the lecture video, you have the round cap, which basically allows you to round off the ends. So I'm going to bring this in a little bit and use that to define there. Now, this is a line right now. It is considered a stroke. Now, what if I wanted to make that a fill in a certain case? So I would go up to Object, Path, Outline, Stroke. So you use Outline Stroke, which basically will define it as a shape there. So I want to use these because I want to create like 3 of these types of shapes below it. So I'm going to go to Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste in front. And I'm going to use my arrow keys to kind of like nudge down. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to paste in front. I'm going to nudge down as well. But this time I'm going to make it kind of like go in the center. So I'm going to actually grab one of these ends here. I'm going to go Alt, or hold down the Alt key. I think it's a Command key on a PC. And make that a little bit smaller. And do that. Now you can make decisions based on what you want to do with this stuff right on the fly. So like right here, I don't really like how this is kind of like coming down. So maybe I just lop that off. So I'll go to my rectangle, draw that, my black arrow, click on that one, and I'm going to knock that off so it can be moved down to kind of be more in line with what that's there. Now also, what are some of the other things that actually create light? So like here, you can do the same thing with the pen tool, and you can make the stroke even bigger. Or another one with a cap to round that off. I'm going to go Object, Path, Outline Stroke, and we'll define like a light emitter. So I'm going to select these, bring this down. Alright. So if I go ahead and edit copy and edit paste in front, what I can do is I can go to my rotate tool. The rotate tool I know I haven't shown before, but if I go to my rotate tool, I can bring my cursor down this far. So you can kind of like see it's like my cursor's right here. I'm going to move it towards the center of the light bulb, that round part. And I'm just going to click. And then when I go up here, I can actually have it rotate around that particular area, or that axis, which is right here. I'm going to edit, paste it in front again, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to rotate this down. Paste in front. Bring another one down. And then edit, paste in front, and then bring another one down here. Okay. So like here, I want this to kind of like front down a little bit more, maybe. Like so. Okay. So you can kind of like mess around with it and get it. But here, it's an icon that represents light. Now, if you were to take all of this, this is going to be a good practice. If I select all of this stuff with my black arrow, object group, and I were to take this and make it smaller, much smaller, could it still represent what the concept is? All right. Now here it's not exactly the greatest, but at some point it'll start to look like it belongs, like that concept is there. So that's a good practice. If you want your icon to actually be defined, you want it to actually take on that look good as small size. So like if I were to just basically take this as a stroke itself, all right, let's say we do allow for a stroke on all of these. All right, and I increase the stroke even some. And for the demonstration, I have to go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke, and then make it smaller. Okay, basically it's like, would it define it anymore? So sometimes line, and this one looks not too bad, but if it were printed, sometimes these lines get to be too small that printing them becomes nearly impossible. All right. So that is your next exercise. So make sure you come up with some interesting concepts. So if you have any questions, by all means, email me or message me or however you want to get a hold of me, or even talk about it in class. So, all right. Have a good day.